Hi and welcome. In today's video we're going to be pitting my Ping G430 Max driver head to head with one of the greatest drivers of all time, the Titleist 975D from 1998. Now each year manufacturers tell us that their drivers are better, quicker, more accurate, and we all know that the gains are very minimal. But what's the difference between two drivers that are 25 years apart in technology? The Titleist 975D was epic in 1998. Everybody was playing it or wanted to play it, and Tiger was just winning everything with it. Before we hit some balls and look at some data, let's take a little closer up view of each of these drivers. As you can see, the size difference is what immediately stands out, with most forgiving drivers now being the maximum 460cc in size. The Titleist at just 260cc looks tiny in comparison. Even the mini drivers of today have bigger heads than this. Additionally, with the drivers of the time, there is a simplicity to the look around the whole head, whereas today's drivers appear to have to scream about how much technology they have packed into them. So let's look at the 975D in a bit more detail. It's a titanium head, and for the time had a very deep face. This version is 8.5 degrees in loft and has a custom shaft that I put in at the time. As you can see, it's a glued hosel, so no ability to change the loft or lie, which is something that is now seen as vital in the fitting process. It's a D4 swing weight. But enough about the spec of the club. Is this just not one of the prettiest drivers you've ever seen? The perfect pear-shaped head and the way it just sits on the ground is stunning. It's going to be so interesting to get this driver back on the launch monitor. Having a quick look at the Ping G430 Max, it's another in Ping's history of just making great, easy to use drivers. It's 460cc in size with a D3 swing weight and is a 9-degree head turned down to 8 degrees. Again, the benefit of having an adjustable loft sleeve. It will certainly be interesting to see how forgiving this is as opposed to the Titleist, let alone any difference in speed, spin and carry. And just before we go and hit some balls, I really wish that manufacturers would go back to providing a sock head cover. These things were just fantastic at being able to protect the shaft. Anyway, I'm Graham, so let's get these drivers on the launch monitor. Well, that was really great fun hitting those drivers. So before we go and have a look at the data, now's the time for you to subscribe to the channel. It's free to do. It really helps me a lot. And leave a comment down below on your favorite driver of all time. So I hit a bunch of shots with these drivers. And before we look at the data, which will be up here, I just want to say that the Titleist driver was fantastic when I hit it out the middle, and it really felt and sounded amazing. But boy, those miss hits were absolutely horrible. So looking at this data, you can see that I actually swung the Titleist slightly faster. That's not really a massive surprise because the head's smaller and there's a little bit less drag resistance. But wow, board speed is the biggest factor here. The Ping is just so much better at being able to transfer club head speed into ball speed, and that really showed up. The Ping driver is more than 10 miles an hour of ball speed faster, even though I was swinging it slightly slower. So when we look now at the spin rate of the drivers, we can see that not only was the Titleist driver not as fast with its ball speed, but it was also spinning more. I hit a few shots that were going over 3,000 RPM, and that's something that I very, very rarely see from a lot of modern drivers. I can't 100% put my finger on what it was that caused this, but if we look at the Titleist driver in a little bit more detail, we can see that it's got full face grooves on it. Now this is really interesting, and it's something that driver manufacturers have stepped away from recently. Most drivers these days tend to be very, very flat on their face with very little grooves and almost completely smooth, with the exception of Cobra, who have tried a milled face for a little while, and the tailor-made new drivers with the carbon face, which have a tiny little bit of texture to them. But no driver manufacturers these days are putting full grooves across their face. We understand now that obviously a golf ball compresses into grooves and it creates spin. That's why our irons have grooves, so we can generate that spin and control. But that's the last thing that we need on a driver, because it will just up that spin rate. And that's clearly what I saw and what you can see from the data. When we look at the vertical launch data, we can see that the Titleist driver was just launching lower, and I could clearly see that where the ball was impacting the net, as well as obviously from these figures. With these modern day drivers, what companies are doing is they're making the heads really, really big, and they're pushing the weight low and to the back. And what that is allowing us to do is to then create a high launch. We have a look here, you can clearly see that this Ping driver has a weight situated right at the very back. That weight is 25 grams, and that's what's allowing the weight to be stretched back to the head. That's allowing us to create more control, a higher moment of inertia, which is basically how friendly the driver is to hit, but also it's allowing us to create a really high flighted shot with not a lot of loft. Now when you look at the Titleist driver in comparison, you can see that there's none of that technology. This is just a basic standard titanium head, and obviously being smaller, it means that the weight is not pulled back and low as much. And that's why I'm expecting that that driver launched significantly lower and would create naturally a lower ball flight than a lot of the modern drivers, which are optimized to hit the ball high with some lower spin. So those factors of ball speed, spin number, and launch are all what have contributed to the difference in distance here. And you can see that the modern driver, the Ping G430, is carrying practically a full 30 yards further than the Titleist 975D. Just goes to show how much the technology has changed and improved over the last 25 years, and you can now begin to see why people like the USGA and the RNA are now getting really concerned about the distance that people are hitting golf shots, because even from someone like me, that's 30 yards difference of carry. Although I do have to say, in Titleist's defence, the 975D is still one of the prettiest drivers ever made, and boy, the sound of the club head is absolutely phenomenal when you crunch one out the middle. Well, that was a ridiculously fun way for me to spend some of my time, and I hope you enjoyed the video as well. I also found my Mizuno T-Zoid 3 wood from around the same era in the cupboard, so if you'd like me to test that against my current 3 wood gamer, then leave Mizuno in the comments below. If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell icon so as you don't miss any of the amazing content coming from the channel. If you want to see how different golf balls from a single manufacturer perform, you'll find that video here. I'm Graham, and I'll catch you on the course soon.